Hello, so I've just got back from uni and I've been to like a conference talk thing this afternoon for like this conference group that we're gonna be running throughout the year, and it's been run a few times before from what I understand, and yeah, so that was the initial meeting anyway, so I don't really understand it much yet, but anyway, I heard a lecture this morning and followed by a seminar. The lecture kind of felt alright. It was on Plato's Theaetetus again, and it was in relation to Heraclitian flux. Okay, so how does the Theaetetus link to Heraclitus? Okay, so in the Theaetetus, the objective is to, I guess, get to a definition of knowledge. So the definition of knowledge that we're currently, I guess, depicting is knowledge is perception. Okay, so I've already explained this briefly in another video, so I won't go into too much detail about, what exactly this means right now. But Socrates says that the only way you could accept, logically, I guess, as you could accept that knowledge is perception, is a true statement, is if you also accept a Heraclitian metaphysic. So Heraclitus posits that the world is always changing, that everything is in flux. And by this he means everything. Okay? So he means the knower, so that would be you and me. And it also means the world, so the things being known, the things outside of ourselves. Because if that's the case, then we can only know things on a moment-to-moment basis. Because in the next moment, everything has already changed. It probably won't even be the next moment, it'll be perhaps the next second or the next millisecond. Everything has changed. And even within the same second, between different individuals and different states of affairs in the world, we're always perceiving the external world as slightly different to each other, or maybe very different to each other, because we're all changing. We're all changing states constantly. You're changing states, I'm changing states right now. Therefore, the way that I'm perceiving the external world around me isn't necessarily the way it is. Both because the external world around me is always changing according to a Heraclitian metaphysic, and I'm always changing. My beliefs are always changing. My perceptions are always changing. My emotions are changing. Everything is changing, and that's causing me to perceive the changing world around me in a completely different way to everyone else around me. And if this is the case, then truth is subjective. Ultimately, because the way I perceive the world is the way it is for me. And that is Protagerean relativism. Okay, and that's what Socrates is trying to refute. But he does say that if you do accept the idea of Heraclitian metaphysic, then you can believe in, or you can justify Protagerean relativism in some ways. However, we can also refute a Heraclitian metaphysic, and we don't even have to do much work to do this, because it does itself in some ways. Right, so the idea is that you're changing, I'm changing, everything is changing all the time. Everything is in flux. Okay, so let's think about the statement, everything is in flux. Now, that is a positive statement about the world. If everything's in flux, then we can't make any positive statements about the world, because everything is in a state of becoming. There is no to be, there is no is. Nothing is, everything is becoming. It's always changing. Okay, so what about the statement, everything is in flux? That's a definitive truth statement about the world. Okay, so in some ways, it uses a framework. Heraclitus uses a framework of which he's almost denying. He's using a framework to deny a framework. He's using a logical framework to deny the framework itself, perhaps. Although I'm not sure that's completely true, because I do understand that Heraclitus was familiar with the Logos. So perhaps it's just a silly, perhaps it's just a misinterpretation on Plato's part to, I guess, bring in the Heraclitian metaphysics here, because if Heraclitus believes in the Logos, and we'll assume the Logos is some sort of logic which underpins the universe, if Heraclitus does believe that the Logos does exist, then that means he believes that there is some external truth that perhaps we can get to know, we can learn more about, we can become closer to the truth, right? But Protagoras, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure those two ideas are compatible. Universal subjectivism says that the world is for you as it is for you, and the world is true for me as it is for me. Okay, the way we perceive it. So that's purely perception. There's no objective truth there. Everything's changing. Right? And the reason Heraclitus, I guess, derives his conclusion, or thinks of the idea of the Logos, is because we can perceive opposites. Okay, so there's light and dark. Right, those are opposites. Hot and cold, opposites. And I guess he's interested in what makes them opposites. Because in order for us to perceive something as being opposite, and perhaps come to some sort of agreement on that, there has to be some sort of logical rule written into the universe which determines those two things to be opposite one another. Say, as opposed to hot being opposite to loud, because that's not the case. Loud and quiet are opposites, okay? Not loud and hot. Now, it's also interesting, I guess, we can take this a step further. If we think of there as being an objective reality out there, and our words are just symbols which are attempting to capture the nature of this reality, okay? So, it doesn't necessarily matter what you call it. You could say hot is opposite to loud if by loud you actually mean cold, something that resembles coldness or has the quality of coldness. Right, so that doesn't matter. It doesn't necessarily matter what symbols we use. All that matters is that we can somehow convey the meaning of behind those symbols, that we somehow understand what those symbols mean. Right? So we understand when I say cold, you can probably picture coldness. Maybe because of your experience of coldness. And that's the same with hotness as well. You can understand hot because you have perhaps past experience of someone attributing the word hot to that. And Plato would say that because we can understand this, that means that things can exist, that things do exist. And also that we can use language in order to get close to the truth of the existence of things, of the ontology of the world, I guess, or metaphysics. Anyway, I'm going to have to go because this video is going to cut out soon. Yeah, so